My daughter-in-law called me a freeloader. She said it at Thanksgiving dinner, in front of everyone, in the house I owned, at the table I had set, after cooking a meal that took me 14 hours to prepare. "Let's be honest," Victoria said, dabbing her mouth with the napkin I had ironed that morning. "Mama Pearl has been living off this family for years. She doesn't work. She doesn't contribute financially. She just sits around this house all day doing. What exactly?" The table went silent. My son Terrence, Victoria's husband, stared at his plate. My daughter Coretta looked away. My grandchildren shifted uncomfortably in their seats. No one defended me. I set down my fork, slowly, carefully. "What do I do, Victoria?" "Nothing. That's my point. You don't do anything. Meanwhile, Terrence and I are working ourselves to death, and you're here enjoying the fruits of everyone else's labor." The fruits of everyone else's labor. In my house. The house I had paid off 30 years ago. The house where I had raised my children. The house they all came running to whenever they needed help. "I see. Do you? Because honestly, Mama Pearl, it's time for you to start pulling your weight. Or maybe it's time to consider other living arrangements." Other living arrangements. She was telling me, in my own home, that I needed to earn my place or leave. I looked around the table, at the faces of people I had loved and served my entire life. Terrence would not meet my eyes. Coretta found something fascinating on the ceiling. My grandchildren, Jasmine, Marcus, and little Destiny, looked terrified. And Victoria smiled. That cold, triumphant smile of someone who had finally said what she had been thinking for years. I did not argue. I did not defend myself. I did not list the hundreds of things I did every single day to keep this family running. I simply nodded. "You're right, Victoria. I'll think about what you've said." Her smile widened. She had expected a fight. My calm acceptance confused her. "Good." They thought I was broken. That was their first mistake. My name is Pearl Annette Washington. I am 72 years old. I have lived in this house for 47 years. I raised 2 children here, buried a husband from here, and spent every day since then holding my family together in ways they never saw. And my family had just called me lazy, a freeloader, a burden. They had no idea what I actually did, no idea how much I contributed, no idea how completely their lives depended on my invisible labor. But they were about to find out. Let me tell you what I actually do. I wake up at 5:30 every morning. Before anyone else is awake, I start the coffee. I prepare breakfast. I set out vitamins and medications for anyone who needs them. I do the laundry, not just my own, everyone's. Terrence and Victoria have been bringing their clothes here for 3 years because their washing machine broke, and they never bothered to replace it. I clean the house, the common areas, the bathrooms, the kitchen, every surface that needs dusting, scrubbing, polishing. I maintain the yard, the garden, the flower beds my late husband planted 30 years ago. I do the grocery shopping, the meal planning, the cooking, family dinners, holiday meals, birthday cakes, all of it comes from my kitchen. I babysit. Destiny, my youngest grandchild, comes here every day after school because her parents cannot afford daycare and Victoria refuses to adjust her work schedule. I pay the property taxes, the utilities, the homeowner's insurance, from my pension and my late husband's Social Security survivor benefits. I manage the household budget. I schedule repairs. I coordinate with contractors. I remember birthdays. I send cards. I organize family gatherings. I listen, I advise, I comfort, I support. I am the invisible infrastructure that keeps this family functioning. And they called me lazy. Now, if you are still with me, I need to tell you something. Victoria's words at Thanksgiving were not the beginning. They were the moment when years of disrespect finally came into the open. The moment when my family revealed exactly how little they valued everything I did. If you want to know what happened next, how I showed them exactly what my laziness was worth, subscribe to this channel. Press that button. Press the like button too. Turn on that notification bell so you never miss what comes next. And drop a comment telling me where you are watching from. Tell me if your family has ever taken you for granted, if they have ever called you lazy while benefiting from everything you do. I want to know I am not alone. Now, let me continue. The night after Thanksgiving, I lay in bed thinking. Not about Victoria's words, those were just the final straw. I was thinking about years of smaller moments, years of being taken for granted. The time Terrence forgot my birthday, but expected me to host his. The time Coretta moved back home, temporarily, after her divorce, and stayed for 2 years without paying a dime. The time Victoria asked me to babysit Destiny for a few hours, that turned into 60 hours a week. The countless meals I had cooked that were eaten without thanks. The countless loads of laundry that disappeared into closets without acknowledgement. The countless hours of my life poured into people who did not even notice. They thought I was lazy because they did not see my work. And they did not see my work because I did it so well, so consistently, so invisibly that they assumed it simply happened on its own. That was about to change. I made a decision that night. I would not argue. I would not defend myself. I would not make lists or give speeches about everything I contributed. I would simply stop. Not dramatically, not with announcements or ultimatums. I would quietly, gradually stop doing the things no one noticed. I would let them experience life without my laziness. And I would watch what happened. The first change was small. The morning after Thanksgiving, I did not make coffee. Terrence stumbled into the kitchen at 7:30, bleary-eyed, reaching for the pot that was always full when he arrived. It was empty. "Mama, there's no coffee." "I know." "Are we out?" "No, I just didn't make any." He stared at me like I had spoken a foreign language. "You didn't make coffee." "I was feeling lazy this morning. I'm sure you can manage." He blinked, looked at the coffee maker, looked back at me. "Where are the filters?" "In the cabinet above the refrigerator, where they have been for 30 years. He found the filters, struggled to figure out how much coffee to use, made a pot that was weak and bitter. "This doesn't taste right." "Practice makes perfect." That was the first crack. Over the following week, I made more changes. I stopped doing their laundry. The basket in the hallway, where Terrence and Victoria dropped their clothes every Sunday, remained full, then overflowed, then became a pile on the floor. "Mama, when are you doing laundry?" Victoria asked on Wednesday. "I'm not sure. I've been feeling lazy lately." "But we need clean clothes." "There's a laundromat on 5th Street, or you could fix your washing machine." Victoria's face twisted with annoyance, but she could not argue. She had called me lazy. She had said I did not contribute. Now she was complaining that I was not doing her laundry. She took the clothes home. I did not ask what happened next. I stopped babysitting without notice. The following Monday, when Victoria dropped Destiny off after school as usual, I was not there. I had gone to visit my friend Gladys. I had told no one. My phone rang 16 times that afternoon. I did not answer. When I returned home at 6 o'clock, Victoria was packing in my driveway, Destiny in the back seat of her car. "Where were you?" "I dropped Destiny off and no one was here." "I was visiting a friend." "You can't just disappear. I had to leave work early. Do you know how much trouble that caused?" "I'm sorry. I forgot I was supposed to babysit. My memory must be going. Old age and laziness, you know." Victoria's face reddened. She wanted to yell. She wanted to demand accountability. But she could not without admitting that she depended on me, that my laziness was actually essential to her life. "This can't happen again." "Then perhaps you should arrange proper childcare. I hear there are excellent daycare centers in the area." She drove away without another word. That was the second crack. I stopped cooking family meals. Sunday dinner had been a tradition for as long as I could remember. Every week the whole family gathered at my house for a home-cooked feast, roast chicken or pot roast or ham, fresh vegetables, homemade bread, desserts that took hours to prepare. The Sunday after Thanksgiving, I made myself a sandwich. When the family arrived expecting dinner, they found me in my living room, watching television, eating ham and cheese on white bread. "Mama, where's dinner?" Coretta asked, looking around the empty kitchen. "I didn't make any." "What do you mean? It's Sunday." "Yes, and I'm feeling lazy. There's a nice restaurant down the street, or you could cook something yourselves." The family exchanged bewildered looks. Terrence, Coretta, Victoria, the grandchildren, they stood in my kitchen like they had never seen it before, like they had no idea how the stove worked or where the pots were kept. "But we always have Sunday dinner," Marcus said, my 16-year-old grandson. "You always cook." "I know, baby, but your grandmother is apparently a freeloader who doesn't contribute anything, so I thought I would stop contributing for a while, see how everyone likes it." Silence. They ordered pizza that night. It arrived cold. Everyone ate in awkward silence. That was the third crack. The cracks kept spreading. I stopped paying the utilities. Not entirely. I could not let the lights go out in my own house. But I stopped covering the extra costs that had crept in over the years. The increased electricity from Terrence's electric car charging in my garage. The water bill that had doubled since Victoria started doing her laundry here. The cable package upgraded to include sports channels no one had asked me about. "Mama, the cable got disconnected," Terrence complained. "I know. I canceled the sports package. I never watch it anyway." "But I watch it." "Then perhaps you should get your own cable subscription, at your own house." I stopped managing the household calendar. Doctor's appointments were missed. School events were forgotten. Bills came late because no one remembered to check the mail. "Mama, did you know Destiny had a recital last night?" Coretta asked. "I did not. No one told me." "You always keep track of these things." "I do. Strange. I thought I was lazy and didn't contribute anything." The family was floundering, drowning in the chaos of daily life that I had been managing invisibly for years, and they still did not understand why. That was the moment I understood something important. My family had not just taken me for granted. They had built their entire lives on the foundation of my labor, and then convinced themselves that foundation did not exist. They saw a woman sitting in a house, and they assumed she did nothing. They did not see the hours of work that made their lives possible. They did not understand that my doing nothing was actually doing everything. And now, for the first time, they were starting to see. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, Victoria called a family meeting. She sat everyone down in my living room, and announced that we needed to discuss the situation. "Things have been falling apart around here," she said. "The house is a mess. The schedule is chaos. No one knows what's happening when." "Perhaps someone should take charge," I said mildly, "since I'm apparently not contributing." Victoria shot me a look. "That's what I want to talk about. I think we need to establish clear responsibilities. Who does what? A schedule." "A schedule for what?" "For household tasks, cooking, cleaning, childcare." "I see. And who would be responsible for these tasks?" "We would rotate. Everyone takes a turn." "Everyone?" "Yes." I nodded slowly. "So what you're saying is that all the things you thought I wasn't doing, cooking, cleaning, childcare, are actually important enough that they need to be scheduled and assigned." Victoria's face tightened. "I never said they weren't important. You called me a freeloader. You said I didn't contribute anything. You said I was living off everyone else's labor." "I just meant—" "You meant what you said, Victoria. You looked at everything I do and you saw nothing. You saw a lazy old woman taking up space. And now that I've stopped doing those nothing things, suddenly they're important enough to need a family meeting." The room was silent. "I have done the cooking, the cleaning, the childcare, and everything else in this house for years. For free. Without thanks. Without acknowledgement. And when I finally heard what you all really thought of me, I decided to let you see what life looks like without my laziness." I stood up. I'm done with this meeting. If you want to make a schedule, make one, divide up the tasks, take responsibility for yourselves, but don't expect me to do it for you. Not anymore. I walked to my bedroom and closed the door. They did not make a schedule. They argued for 2 hours about who should do what, about whose job was more demanding, about who had more free time, about why it was unfair to expect them to do things that had always been done. Always been done. By me, the lazy freeloader who contributed nothing. The arguments accomplished nothing. Everyone went home angry, and the chaos continued. 1 month after Thanksgiving, the truth finally began to emerge. Terrence sat me down in my kitchen. He looked exhausted, defeated. "Mama, I need to apologize." "For what?" "For what Victoria said at Thanksgiving, for not defending you, for all of it." I waited. I didn't realize. I didn't understand how much you do, how much you've always done. Victoria and I have been fighting constantly because nothing at our house works anymore. The laundry piles up. We eat takeout every night because neither of us knows how to cook. Destiny's been acting out because her schedule is all chaos. I see. I know we took you for granted, Mama. I know we didn't appreciate what you did. I'm sorry. Thank you, Terrence. That means something. Will you go back to how things were? I looked at my son, this man I had raised, this man who had sat silent while his wife called me lazy. No. Mama. I said no, Terrence. I'm not going back to being invisible, to doing everything for everyone without thanks or acknowledgement. If this family wants my help, they will ask for it, properly, with respect, and with understanding of what they're asking. I understand. Do you? Because I don't think you do, not yet. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a piece of paper. This is a list. Every task I performed for this family over the past 5 years, the hours involved, the market value if you had to pay someone to do them. I handed him the paper. His eyes widened as he read. Mama, this says, $347,000. That's what my laziness would cost if you had to pay for it. Childcare alone is over $100,000. Cooking and cleaning, another $75,000. Household management, laundry, yard work, errands, it adds up. I had no idea. No, you didn't, because you never looked. You never asked. You just assumed that because I didn't go to an office, I didn't work. Because I wasn't paid, my labor didn't have value. I took the paper back. I want you to share this with Victoria, and with Coretta, and with anyone else who thinks I'm a freeloader. And then I want all of you to think very carefully about how you've treated me, and how you want things to be going forward. Terrence left that night with the list in his hand. But the reckoning was not over, because while my family was learning the value of my labor, I had discovered something else. Something that would change everything. Something Victoria did not want anyone to know. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The discovery came 3 days after my conversation with Terrence. I was going through my filing cabinet, looking for old tax documents, when I found something that did not belong. A folder, unmarked, tucked behind my property records like someone wanted it hidden but accessible. I opened it and felt my heart stop. Inside were documents with my name on them, power of attorney forms, property transfer papers, a draft petition for guardianship. None of them signed, but all of them prepared, ready. And at the bottom of the stack, a letter from a real estate agent. An appraisal of my house, conducted 6 months ago without my knowledge. Estimated value, $875,000. Someone had been preparing to take control of my life, to declare me incompetent, to sell my house. And that someone had hidden these documents in my own filing cabinet, where they could be discovered at the right moment. I sat at my desk, staring at the papers, my hands trembling. Victoria, it had to be Victoria. That was the moment I understood. The Thanksgiving confrontation was not just disrespect. It was not just ingratitude. It was the beginning of a plan. Victoria had called me lazy, useless, a burden in front of the whole family. She had planted the seed that I was not contributing, not capable, not worth keeping around. And now I had found the proof of what came next. She was going to have me declared mentally incompetent. She was going to take guardianship. She was going to sell my house and take everything I had. The laziness accusation was just phase one. Make everyone believe I was declining. Make everyone agree that I could not take care of myself. Then swoop in as the concerned daughter-in-law, just trying to help. I had seen this before. Friends whose families had turned on them. Elderly neighbors shipped off to nursing homes while their children divided the spoils. I never thought it would happen to me. I did not confront Victoria. Not yet. I needed to understand the full scope of what she was planning. I needed to know who else was involved. And I needed to protect myself before she realized I knew. So I put the folder back exactly where I found it. I closed the filing cabinet, and I began my own investigation. The first call I made was to Alina Preston, my lawyer. Alina, I need to see you immediately. Something has happened. What is it, Pearl? I found documents in my house, power of attorney, guardianship petition, real estate appraisal. Someone is planning to take everything from me. There was a sharp intake of breath. Do you know who? I have suspicions, but I need your help to find out for certain. Come to my office this afternoon. Bring the documents or photographs of them. We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with. Alina's office was in the old part of downtown, a brick building that had been there for 60 years. She had been my lawyer since William died, and I trusted her completely. She studied the documents I had photographed with growing concern. Pearl, this is serious. These papers are professionally prepared. Someone hired a lawyer to draft them. Can you tell who? The letterhead has been removed, but I can make inquiries. There are only so many attorneys in this area who handle guardianship cases. What about the real estate appraisal? Alina examined the photograph. Henderson Realty, I know them. They specialize in estate sales and difficult situations. Difficult situations. Cases where family members are selling property on behalf of elderly relatives, often without full consent. My stomach turned. How long has this been going on? The appraisal is dated 6 months ago, so at least that long, probably longer. 6 months. Victoria had been planning this for at least 6 months, while living in my house, eating my food, dropping her daughter off for free childcare, while calling me lazy. Alina helped me develop a response strategy. First, we secured my assets. I transferred my savings into a new account at a different bank, one Victoria did not know about. I updated my will, removing Terrence as executor and nomming Alina instead. I created a living trust that would protect my house from any guardianship claim. Second, we gathered evidence. I installed small cameras in my home, legal in my state as long as I owned the property. I started recording conversations. I documented everything Victoria said and did. Third, we prepared a counteroffensive. Alina connected me with a geriatric psychiatrist, Dr. Amara Okonkwo, who could provide an independent evaluation proving my mental competence. We gathered medical records, financial statements, anything that demonstrated I was fully capable of managing my own affairs. And fourth, we investigated Victoria. If she's planning this kind of scheme, Alina said, she's probably done something like it before. People don't wake up one day and decide to steal from their mother-in-law. There's usually a pattern. How do we find out? I have a private investigator I work with, Marcus Webb. He's thorough and discreet. Do it. I want to know everything about Victoria, her past, her finances, her secrets. While Marcus investigated Victoria, I continued my experiment. I kept not doing the things no one noticed. The laundry, the cooking, the cleaning, the childcare, the invisible labor that held my family together. And I watched them fall apart. Terrence and Victoria's marriage was crumbling. They fought constantly, about who should do what, about whose turn it was, about why everything was so hard now. "I don't understand," Victoria complained during one visit. "We never had these problems before." "Before what?" I asked innocently. Before things changed." "What changed, Victoria?" She could not answer. She could not admit that the only thing that had changed was me, that I had stopped carrying the weight she never acknowledged. Coretta was struggling too. Without my help managing her schedule, she missed appointments, forgot deadlines, showed up late to everything. Her boss had given her a warning. "Mama, I can't keep track of everything," she told me. "You always reminded me about things. How do I remember on my own?" "There are apps for that, baby. Calendars, to-do lists. The same tools everyone else uses." "But you always just knew." "I knew because I paid attention, because I cared enough to remember, because I made it my job to keep this family running." She looked at me with something like understanding dawning in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Mama. I didn't realize." "I know you didn't, baby. That's the problem." 2 weeks after I found the documents, Marcus Webb delivered his report. We met at Aliner's office. The folder he placed on the table was thick, much thicker than I had expected. "Mrs. Washington, your daughter-in-law has quite a history." "Tell me." "Her real name is Victoria Chen. She changed it to Victoria Palmer when she married her first husband, Richard Palmer, 12 years ago. First husband, Terrence is her second. Third, actually. She was married briefly in her 20s. That one ended in annulment. But the Palmer marriage is where things get interesting." Marcus opened the folder and spread documents across the table. Richard Palmer was 67 years old when he married Victoria. She was 31. He was a retired executive with substantial assets, a house worth over $1 million, investment accounts, pension. What happened to him? He died 3 years after they married. Heart attack. Victoria inherited everything. That could be coincidence. It could, except Victoria had been slowly isolating him from his family before his death. His children from his first marriage, 2 sons, tried to contest the will. They claimed Victoria had manipulated their father, that he had shown signs of cognitive decline before changing his estate documents. Did they win? No, the case was dismissed. Victoria had documentation showing Richard was mentally competent when he made the changes. Medical evaluations, witness statements, everything needed to prove he knew what he was doing. I felt cold. She had done this before. It appears so, and Mrs. Washington, there's more. Marcus pulled out another set of documents. After Richard's death, Victoria moved to Denver. She started dating another older man, Thomas Chen. Wealthy, widowed, no children. They were engaged within a year. What happened? Thomas broke off the engagement. He got suspicious about Victoria's past and hired an investigator. When he confronted her, she disappeared, moved here, changed her name back to Victoria Palmer, her married name from Richard. And then she met Terrence. Exactly, your son is 38 years old. He's the youngest partner she's ever targeted. But you're the real target. You own your house outright. You have pension income. You're elderly, living alone, with assets worth close to $1 million. I sat in stunned silence. My daughter-in-law was not just greedy. She was a predator. A professional who targeted elderly people with assets, manipulated her way into their families, and walked away with everything. And she had chosen me as her next victim. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed, thinking about everything I had learned. About Victoria. About her dead first husband. About the man in Denver who had barely escaped her. And about my son. Did Terrence know? Was he part of this? Or was he another victim, manipulated by a woman who saw him only as a means to an end? I did not know, and that uncertainty was the hardest part. Terrence was my child. I had raised him, loved him, believed in him. The thought that he might be complicit in a scheme to steal from me, to lock me away so his wife could take my house, was almost unbearable. But I could not afford to be sentimental. Victoria was dangerous. And whether Terrence was her accomplice or her dupe, I had to protect myself. 3 days later, I set a trap. I called Victoria and asked her to come over. Alone. I said I wanted to talk about the future. She arrived looking pleased, confident. She thought this was her victory lap, the moment when the lazy old woman finally surrendered. Mama Pearl, I'm so glad you called. I've been worried about you. Have you? Yes, you've seemed off lately, withdrawn. I know the holidays can be hard. The holidays were hard, Victoria, but not for the reasons you think. I gestured for her to sit. She did, arranging herself on my couch like she already owned it. I found something interesting in my filing cabinet last week. Victoria's smile flickered. Oh. Power of attorney documents, guardianship petition, real estate appraisal of my house. The smile disappeared entirely. I don't know what you're talking about. No, because they were hidden behind my property records, in my house, and they were prepared by Henderson Realty, a company that specializes in estate sales for elderly people. Victoria's face had gone pale. Someone must have. Must have what? Broken into my house and hidden documents in my filing cabinet. That's quite a theory. I leaned forward. I know what you are, Victoria. I know about Richard Palmer. I know about Thomas Chen. I know this isn't the first time you've targeted someone's elderly relative for their assets. Victoria stood abruptly. This is ridiculous. I don't have to listen to this. No, you don't. But before you go, I want you to know something. I stood too, facing her directly. I have copies of those documents with my lawyer. I have a private investigator's report on your history. I have medical documentation proving I am completely mentally competent. And I have recordings of multiple conversations in this house. Victoria's face twisted with fury. You can't. I can. It's my house, my property. Everything that happens here is my business. I stepped closer. Here's what's going to happen, Victoria. You are going to stay away from me. You are going to stop any plans you have to take my house or my assets. And you are going to tell me whether my son is part of this scheme or just another victim of your manipulation. Terrence loves me. I'm sure he thinks he does. But does he know who you really are? Does he know about Richard Palmer? Does he know you married a dying man and walked away with everything? Richard had a heart attack. It was natural causes. Maybe, or maybe he had help. Either way, it's not going to happen to me. Victoria's eyes were blazing now. You think you've won? You think this is over? I've been doing this for years. I know how to handle people like you. People like me. Old women who don't know their place, who think their children actually care about them, who believe family means something. She laughed, a cold, ugly sound. Terrence doesn't care about you, Mama Pearl. He hasn't for years. He cares about his career and his comfort and his life with me, and when the time comes to choose, he'll choose me. He always does. She walked toward the door. This isn't over. You've just made things more difficult, but I always get what I want. Always. She slammed the door behind her. I stood alone in my living room, my heart pounding. Victoria had revealed herself completely. She was a predator, a manipulator, a woman who saw human beings as obstacles between her and what she wanted. But she had also made a mistake. She had underestimated me. She had assumed that calling me lazy meant I was weak. That being old meant I was helpless. That being a grandmother meant I would not fight. She was about to learn how wrong she was. Because the real confrontation was still coming, and it would determine not just my future, but whether my son was truly lost to me. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, turn on the bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The morning after my confrontation with Victoria, Terrence appeared at my door. He looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes. His clothes were wrinkled like he had slept in them, or not slept at all. Mama, we need to talk. Come in, Terrence. He sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I had fed him thousands of meals, helped him with homework, listened to his dreams and fears. Now he sat there like a stranger, unable to meet my eyes. Victoria told me about your conversation. Did she tell you the truth, or her version? She said you accused her of being some kind of con artist, of marrying men for their money, of planning to steal from you. And what do you think? Terrence was quiet for a long moment. I think there's been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Yes, Victoria can be intense, but she loves me. She loves this family. She wouldn't do what you're accusing her of. I studied my son, this man I had raised, this man who had sat silent while his wife called me lazy and worthless. Terrence, did Victoria tell you about Richard Palmer? He flinched. She mentioned she was married before he died. Did she tell you he was 67 when they married? That she was 31? That she inherited everything when he had a sudden heart attack 3 years later? She said it was a tragedy, that she loved him. And Thomas Chen, did she tell you about the man she was engaged to in Denver? The one who broke it off when he discovered what she really was? Terrence's face went pale. How do you know about that? Because I hired an investigator, Terrence. Because when your wife called me lazy and I found guardianship documents hidden in my filing cabinet, I decided to find out exactly who was living in my house. I slid a folder across the table. This is the report. Read it, all of it, and then tell me again that there's been a misunderstanding. Terrence read the report in silence. I watched his face as he turned pages, as he saw the documentation of Victoria's marriages, her pattern of targeting older people with assets, her history of manipulation and control. When he finished, his hands were shaking. I didn't know. I believe you. She told me, she said her first husband was the love of her life, that losing him broke her. That's why she was so guarded when we met. She told you what you needed to hear. That's what people like her do. But we've been together for 6 years. We have a daughter together. How could I not see? Because you didn't want to see. Because she was careful. Because she showed you exactly what she wanted you to see. Terrence put his head in his hands. What do I do, Mama? First, you tell me the truth. Did you know about the documents in my filing cabinet? The power of attorney, the guardianship petition. He looked up, his eyes wet. I knew Victoria had talked to a lawyer. She said it was just a precaution, that you were getting older and might need help someday. I didn't think. You didn't think she was planning to have me declared incompetent so she could sell my house. No, I swear, Mama, I didn't know it had gone that far. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. Because if my son had knowingly participated in a scheme to steal from me, I would lose not just my assets but my heart. Terrence, I need you to make a choice. What choice? Victoria or me, your wife or your mother, because you cannot have both, not anymore. That was the moment I understood how far this had gone. My family had not just taken me for granted. They had let a predator into our lives, let her plant seeds of doubt and disrespect, let her lay the groundwork for a scheme that would have destroyed me. And now my son had to choose, between the woman he had married and the woman who had raised him. I did not know what he would decide. Terrence left without giving me an answer. He said he needed time, needed to think, needed to process everything he had learned. I let him go. I could not force him to choose. I could only hope that somewhere inside the man Victoria had manipulated, there was still the boy I had raised, the boy who knew right from wrong, the boy who loved his mother. But hope was not a strategy, and I had learned the hard way that family could not be trusted. So I continued preparing. 2 days after my conversation with Terrence, Victoria made her move. She filed an emergency petition for guardianship. Eleanor called me with the news. Pearl, they've accelerated. The petition claims you are mentally incapacitated and a danger to yourself. They're requesting an immediate hearing. On what grounds? They have statements from Terrence and Coretta describing your erratic behavior over the past month. They claim you've been refusing to eat, neglecting the house, showing signs of confusion and memory loss. That's a lie. I stopped doing their laundry and cooking their meals. That's not erratic behavior, that's self-respect. I know, but they're framing it as decline, and they have a psychiatrist lined up to testify. Dr. Marcus Webb. How did you know? Because his name was on the documents I found. Victoria has been planning this for months. Pearl, this is serious. If they get a temporary guardianship order, Victoria will have immediate control over your finances and medical decisions. She could move you to a facility before we can fight back. What do? We counter with everything we have. Dr. Okonkwo's evaluation. Your financial records showing competent management. The investigators report on Victoria's history. Will it be enough? I don't know, but we have to try. The hearing was scheduled for 3 days later. 3 days to prepare. 3 days to fight for my freedom. I spent every waking moment working with a leaner, organizing evidence, preparing statements, rehearsing my testimony. And I waited to hear from Terrence. He did not call, did not visit, did not respond to my messages. His silence was answer enough. The night before the hearing, Coretta came to see me. She stood on my porch, looking ashamed. Mama, I need to tell you something. Come in, baby. We sat in my living room, the room where I had read her bedtime stories, where I had watched her take her first steps, where I had held her through every heartbreak and disappointment. I signed something, she said. Victoria asked me to. She said it was just a statement about how you'd been acting lately. I didn't read it carefully. I didn't think. You didn't think your statement would be used to have me declared mentally incompetent. No, I swear, Mama, I didn't know. I looked at my daughter, this woman I had raised, this woman who had come running back to me when her marriage fell apart, this woman who could not manage her own life without my help. Coretta, do you think I'm incompetent? No, of course not. You're the smartest person I know. Then, why did you sign a document saying I was declining? Because Victoria said. She said you'd been acting strange, refusing to cook, letting the house get messy. She said she was worried and wanted to help. Help by having me declared mentally unfit. I didn't know that's what it was for. I swear, Mama, I just signed where she told me to. Just signed where she told me to. My daughter had signed away my freedom because someone told her to, because she did not think, because she trusted the wrong person. Coretta, I need you to do something. Anything. I need you to come to the hearing tomorrow. I need you to tell the truth, that I am not incompetent, that I was not declining, that I simply stopped doing all the work this family never acknowledged. What about the statement I signed? Tell the judge you were misled. Tell them Victoria manipulated you. Tell the truth. Coretta nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, Mama. I should have been paying attention. I should have known better. Yes, you should have, but you're here now, that's what matters. The morning of the hearing, I dressed carefully. I wore my best dress, navy blue, elegant, dignified. I did my hair. Put on the pearl earrings William had given me for our 30th anniversary. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who had spent her entire life taking care of others, cooking their meals, cleaning their messes, managing their lives. They had called me lazy. They had tried to take everything I had. But I was still standing, still fighting, still here. The courtroom was small but formal. Judge Patricia Aukaffer presided, a stern woman in her 60s who had a reputation for cutting through nonsense. Victoria sat at one table with her lawyer, a slick man named Harrison Drake. Terrence sat beside her, his face blank, refusing to look in my direction. I sat at the other table with a leaner. Coretta was in the gallery behind me, clutching a tissue. This hearing concerns the emergency petition for guardianship over Pearl Washington, Judge Aukaffer began. Mr. Drake, please present your case. Harrison Drake stood, buttoning his jacket. Your Honor, my clients are deeply concerned about Mrs. Washington's well-being. Over the past several weeks, she has exhibited signs of significant cognitive decline. She has neglected basic self-care. She has stopped maintaining her home. She has shown confusion about routine tasks and has become increasingly paranoid and hostile toward family members who only want to help her. He presented the statements from Terrence and Coretta, the fake documentation of my decline. A report from Dr. Webb claiming I showed signs of early dementia. I listened to my life being twisted into a story I did not recognize. A story of a helpless old woman spiraling into incompetence. A story designed to steal everything I had built. When Drake finished, Alina stood. Your Honor, my client is not incompetent. She is a 72-year-old woman who has spent decades running her household and supporting her family, often without acknowledgement or thanks. The behavior the petitioners describe as decline was actually a conscious decision to stop performing uncompensated labor for people who did not appreciate it. She presented Dr. Okonkwo's evaluation, my financial records showing meticulous management, letters from neighbors and friends attesting to my mental clarity. And then she presented Marcus Webb's report on Victoria. Your Honor, the real petitioner in this case is not Terrence Washington. It is his wife, Victoria Washington, formerly Victoria Palmer, formerly Victoria Chen. She has a documented history of targeting elderly individuals with assets. Her first husband died under suspicious circumstances 3 years after she inherited everything. Her engagement to another wealthy man ended when he discovered her pattern of manipulation. Drake jumped up. Objection. This is character assassination. This is evidence of motive, Your Honor. Victoria Washington is not seeking guardianship to help her mother-in-law. She is seeking control over assets worth nearly $1 million. Judge Ockeffer studied the documents Alina had presented. Mr. Drake, did you know about your client's history? Drake hesitated. I was not aware of the specific details. I see. I'll reserve judgment on that for later. She turned to me. Mrs. Washington, would you like to make a statement? I stood slowly. Your Honor, I am 72 years old. I have lived in my house for 47 years. I raised 2 children there. I buried my husband from there. I have paid my bills, managed my affairs, and maintained my home without help from anyone. I looked at Victoria. 2 months ago, at Thanksgiving dinner, my daughter-in-law called me lazy. She said I was a freeloader who didn't contribute anything. She said this in my house, at my table, after I had cooked for 14 hours. I looked at Terrence, who still would not meet my eyes. My son said nothing. My daughter said nothing. Everyone sat there and let me be disrespected in my own home. I turned back to the judge. So I decided to show them what lazy really looks like. I stopped doing the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry, the childcare, all the work I had been doing for free, without thanks for years. I wanted them to understand the value of what I contributed. And now they want to have me declared incompetent, not because I can't take care of myself, but because they can't take care of themselves without me. Because Victoria has been planning to steal my house for months. Because my family would rather lock me away than admit they were wrong. I sat down. The courtroom was silent. Judge Ockeffer reviewed the evidence for a long moment. Then she looked at Victoria. Mrs. Victoria Washington approached the bench. Victoria stood, her face pale. The evidence presented here raises serious concerns about your motives and your history. I am denying this emergency petition for guardianship. Victoria's face twisted. Your Honor, I am not finished. I am also referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for investigation of potential elder abuse and fraud. And I am issuing a restraining order prohibiting you from contacting Mrs. Pearl Washington or coming within 500 feet of her property. You can't do this. I can and I have. Bailiff, please escort Mrs. Victoria Washington from the courtroom. Victoria screamed as she was led away. She screamed about conspiracies and unfairness and how everyone was against her. And through it all, Terrence sat frozen, watching his wife be dragged out of the courtroom, his face a mask of shock. The petition was denied. The immediate threat was over. But as I watched my son sit paralyzed while his wife was taken away, I knew the real reckoning was still coming. Because Terrence had chosen his side. He had signed statements against me. He had sat silent while Victoria tried to steal my life. And now, he had to face the consequences of that choice. The courtroom emptied slowly. Victoria had been taken away, still screaming. Her lawyer had gathered his papers and left without a word. The judge had retired to her chambers. And Terrence remained seated, frozen, staring at the empty space where his wife had been. I stood and walked toward him, my son, the man I had raised, the man who had chosen wrong. Terrence. He looked up at me with hollow eyes. Mama, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know what she was planning. You knew enough. You signed statements saying I was incompetent. You sat beside her at that table. You chose her. I thought she was just trying to help. She said you were declining. She said we needed to protect you. Protect me by taking my house. Protect me by locking me away in a nursing home. He had no answer. Terrence, I love you. I will always love you. But right now, I don't know if I can trust you. I don't know if the man I raised is still in there, or if Victoria hollowed you out and replaced you with someone I don't recognize. I'm still here, Mama. I'm still your son. Then prove it, not with words, with actions. I turned and walked away. Elena was waiting for me at the door. That was well done, Pearl. The judge ruled in your favor completely. What happens now, with Victoria? The district attorney's office will investigate. Given her history and the evidence we presented, there's a strong chance she'll face charges. Elder abuse, attempted fraud, possibly more. And Terrence? That depends on how cooperative he is. If he testifies against Victoria, provides information about her schemes, the DA might go easy on him, if he protects her. He'll face charges too. Possibly. He did sign false statements. That's perjury. I nodded slowly. Let me talk to him, before the DA gets involved. Let me see if there's anything left to save. I did not talk to Terrence for 3 days. I needed time to process what had happened, time to decide what I wanted my relationship with my son to be. During those 3 days, I did something I had not done in months. I rested. I sat in my garden and watched the birds. I read books I had been meaning to read for years. I cooked meals for myself, small, simple meals that I ate in peaceful silence. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I did not take care of anyone but myself. And it was wonderful. On the 4th day, Coretta came to visit. She brought flowers, daisies, my favorite, and a casserole she had made herself. I know it's not as good as yours, Mama, but I wanted to try. I tasted the casserole. It was oversalted and the vegetables were mushy, but she had made it, with her own hands, for me. It's delicious, baby. She smiled, a real smile, not the distracted expression I had grown used to seeing. Mama, I want to apologize, really apologize, not just for signing that statement, but for everything, for taking you for granted, for not seeing everything you did, for letting Victoria call you lazy and not saying anything. Thank you, Coretta. I've been thinking a lot since the hearing, about how I've been living, about how I just expected you to take care of everything. It wasn't fair to you. No, it wasn't. I want to do better. I want to learn how to take care of myself, how to cook and clean and manage my own life. Will you teach me? I looked at my daughter, this woman who had relied on me for so long, this woman who was finally ready to grow up. Yes, baby, I'll teach you, but not because you need me to, because you asked. She hugged me tightly. I love you, Mama. I love you too. The following week, Terrence finally came to see me. He looked different, older, tired, but there was something in his eyes that had not been there before. Clarity. Mama, I've made a decision. Tell me. I'm cooperating with the DA. I'm telling them everything I know about Victoria's schemes, her plans for you, her history, everything. That will mean testifying against your wife. She's not my wife anymore. Not really. I filed for divorce yesterday. I studied my son. What made you decide? I've been thinking about what you said, about proving myself with actions, not words, and I realized you were right. I've been letting other people make my decisions for years. Victoria, my job, my fears. I stopped being the man you raised. He took a deep breath. I want to be that man again. I want to be someone you can be proud of, but I know I have to earn that. I know it's going to take time. It will take time, Terrence. A lot of time. You signed statements saying I was mentally incompetent. You helped your wife try to steal my home. That's not something I can forget. I know. But I'm willing to try, if you're willing to put in the work. I am, Mama, I promise. Don't promise, show me. He nodded. I will. The investigation into Victoria took 3 months. The district attorney's office dug deep. They found evidence of financial manipulation in her marriage to Richard Palmer, transfers and changes that suggested she had been preparing for his death long before it happened. They found other victims, too. People Victoria had befriended and exploited over the years. Elderly neighbors she had helped who later discovered money missing from their accounts. A former employer who had mysteriously signed over valuable assets before dying suddenly. The pattern was undeniable. Victoria was not just a manipulator. She was a predator who had been hunting for decades. She was charged with multiple counts of elder abuse, fraud, and financial exploitation. The DA was also investigating the circumstances of Richard Palmer's death, though proving anything after so many years would be difficult. Victoria's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal. She would plead guilty to lesser charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. The DA refused. We're going to trial, the prosecutor told a leaner. We want the public to see exactly what this woman is capable of. We want other families to know the warning signs. The trial lasted 2 weeks. I testified on the 3rd day. I told the jury everything, the Thanksgiving dinner where Victoria called me lazy, the documents hidden in my filing cabinet, the confrontation where she revealed her true self. I told them about the months I had spent not fighting back, letting Victoria believe she was winning, gathering evidence, building my case. And I told them about the moment I realized my own family had been planning to steal everything I had built. The jury listened in horrified silence. When I finished, Victoria's lawyer tried to cross-examine me. He tried to paint me as a confused old woman with a grudge against her daughter-in-law. I shut him down. I am 72 years old, sir. I have been managing my own affairs for over 50 years. I raised 2 children, buried a husband, paid off a mortgage, and maintained a home, all while people like your client assumed I was too old to notice what was happening around me. I looked directly at Victoria. I noticed everything, I remembered everything, and I documented everything. Your client called me lazy because she thought I was invisible. She was wrong. The jury found Victoria guilty on all counts. The sentence, 15 years in state prison. After the verdict, I stood outside the courthouse, breathing in the cool afternoon air. It was over. The woman who had tried to steal my life was going to prison. My home was safe. My family was slowly beginning to heal. Eleanor stood beside me. How do you feel, Pearl? Tired, relieved, sad. Sad. For Terrence, for Destiny, for all the time we lost because I trusted the wrong person. You didn't trust Victoria. You trusted your son. Same thing in the end. He brought her into our lives. He let her convince him I was the problem. He's trying to make amends. I know, and I'm letting him, but it's going to take a long time before things are right between us, if they ever are. Eleanor nodded. What will you do now? I'm going to go home. I'm going to sit in my garden. I'm going to cook myself a nice dinner, and I'm going to enjoy the peace I've earned. You've earned it, Pearl, more than anyone I know. The months after the trial were quiet. I fell into a new rhythm, a rhythm that centered on myself, not on serving others. I still cooked, but now I cooked what I wanted when I wanted. I still cleaned, but only my own messes. I still helped my family, but on my terms with clear boundaries and expectations. They were learning, slowly, painfully. Terrence had moved to a small apartment across town. He was rebuilding his life without Victoria, working on himself, seeing a therapist, trying to understand how he had been manipulated for so long. He visited every Sunday. We talked, sometimes about the past, sometimes about the future. Sometimes we just sat in comfortable silence, watching the birds in my garden. He was not the son I remembered, but he was becoming someone new, someone better, maybe, someone who understood the weight of what had happened and was determined to carry it honestly. Coretta was learning to cook. Her dishes were getting better, still not as good as mine, but edible. More importantly, she was learning to manage her own life, to keep her own calendar, to remember her own appointments. She called me every day, not because she needed something, but just to talk, to connect, to be present in a way she had never been before. And little Destiny, she was the brightest spot in all of this. With Victoria gone, Destiny had come to stay with me for a while. I enrolled her in the local school. I helped her with homework. I taught her to cook and garden and take care of a home. She was 8 years old, young enough to adapt, old enough to remember. She would carry the scars of what had happened, but she would also carry the lessons. I made sure of that. 1 year after the trial, I threw a birthday party. Not a family obligation kind of party. A real celebration, with friends and neighbors and the people who had stood by me through the worst year of my life. Gladys from next door brought her famous potato salad. Eleanor came with her husband. Even Marcus Webb, the investigator who had helped expose Victoria, stopped by with a bottle of wine. And my family was there. Terrence, quieter now but present. Coretta, proudly carrying a cake she had baked herself. Destiny, helping me set the table, chattering about school and friends and all the things 8-year-olds care about. Terrence raised a glass. To Mama Pearl, the strongest woman I have ever known. The woman who taught me that strength doesn't mean fighting, it means knowing when to wait, when to watch, and when to strike. To Mama Pearl, everyone echoed. I smiled, but the smile was complicated. A year ago, this same family had called me lazy, had taken me for granted, had tried to steal everything I had built. And now they were celebrating me, appreciating me, finally seeing the work I had always done. It had taken nearly losing everything for them to understand, for them to recognize that my laziness was actually the foundation their entire lives rested on. I hoped they would never forget. After the party, when everyone had gone home, I sat on my porch and watched the sun set. The sky was painted in oranges and purples, the same colors it had been for all the years I had lived in this house. The same view I had shared with William, with my children, with generations of memories. I thought about everything that had happened, the betrayal, the investigation, the trial, the slow, painful process of rebuilding. And I thought about what I had learned. My family had called me lazy because they did not see my work. They saw a woman sitting in a house, and they assumed she did nothing. They did not understand that the cooking and cleaning and childcare and management and emotional labor, all of it invisible, all of it uncompensated, was what made their lives possible. When I stopped doing that work, their lives fell apart. They could not function without the foundation I had built. And only then, only when they experienced life without my laziness, did they begin to understand. I had let the disrespect continue, quietly, until it didn't. And when I finally showed them what I was worth, they could not deny it anymore. If you are watching this story, I want you to remember something. Your work has value, even if no one sees it, even if no one thanks you, even if everyone assumes it just happens on its own. The meals you cook, the clothes you wash, the schedules you keep, the emotions you manage, the 1,000 small tasks that hold your family together. All of it matters, all of it has worth. And if the people in your life do not recognize that worth, if they call you lazy while benefiting from everything you do, then maybe it is time to show them. Not with arguments, not with lists, not with demands for gratitude. Just stop, Quietly, let them experience what life looks like without you, and watch them finally understand. My name is Pearl Annette Washington. I am 73 years old now. I live in my house, the house I paid for, the house I maintained for 47 years. My family called me lazy. They tried to steal everything I had built. They learned the hard way exactly what my laziness was worth. $347,000. That was the number I calculated, the market value of years of invisible labor. But the real value was beyond calculation. The real value was in the lives I had shaped, the family I had held together, the home I had made. They see it now, finally, after everything. And I am at peace. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Thank you for being here through every twist and revelation. If this story moved you, please subscribe to this channel. Press the like button. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story. And drop a comment. Tell me where you are watching from. Tell me if your family has ever called you lazy while depending on everything you do. Tell me if you have ever had to show them, really show them, what you are worth. I want to hear from you. I want to know I am not alone. Because none of us are alone. We are all connected by the invisible work we do, by the labor no one sees, by the value we carry that others take for granted. Until next time, take care of yourselves, know your worth, and never let anyone call you lazy while they benefit from everything you do. Your work matters, your labor has value, and anyone who says otherwise can try living without it.